Let's talk about web accessibility. This is part one of three-part series on web content accessibility guidelines 2.2 compliance for Webflow. Web accessibility means building websites anyone can use regardless of their device or ability. It helps people with disabilities access content, but it also helps those that are on mobile devices, older adults, anyone in bright sunlight, or anyone with a slow connection. As of June 2025, it's legally required. The European Accessibility Act is now in effect. So if you're building for travel, e-commerce, and banking companies serving EU customers, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.2 Level AA isn't optional anymore. I've organized this series by disability type: visual, hearing, motor, cognitive, and situational, so you can understand what matters for users and why these guidelines exist. I'm going to show you what Webflow does well and what you need to fix manually. This part covers visual disabilities, blind users, low vision, color blindness, and age-related visual decline. We'll go through font selection, contrast ratio, semantic HTML, ARIA labels, alt text, and more. And as a quick disclaimer, use this as a starting point and not a complete audit. Legal requirements vary by jurisdiction and industry, so you might need some specific requirements or considerations I'm not covering. So the first thing we have is font selection for legibility. This is an AA requirement. So you need to choose text that is easy to read. Appropriate text sizing and spacing helps those with that are visually impaired to read important text, and also those that have cognitive disabilities to focus better on text blocks. So the first thing that I want to share is, of course, the Google Fonts directory. These are great fonts, a lot of great fonts that you can use, like for example, Roboto or Open Sans. You need to focus on those that are just easy to read. Like for example, you can see that if you look at this and this, like you can see that Open Sans is so much easier to read than this font right here. And you need to just, like, these are very easy and very well known fonts that you can use. And if you are unsure about what fonts you can use, you can just see what are the most used fonts and just pick those, and you are going to go fine with those. Other fonts directories that I want to share is this one called Atipo Foundry. I really like this one. There are a lot of great fonts here as well that you can use, and have some different sizing styles. Like for example, this is a bit more futuristic, which I like a lot. Another one is Uncut. That what WTF, and there are a lot of fonts that you can choose from here as well that are great. Another one is font share, like for example Satoshi and General Sans are other great fonts that you can use. Another resource that I want to share is this Figma file shared in the Figma community. There are a lot of font pairs that are great, and I'm going to show you how it looks. Like there are so many, and it's really amazing. Like you can see how they look in different contexts, and like it's really amazing. You can find a lot of fonts that you may like. And I'm going to add the link to this in the description below. And again, like you shouldn't use fonts that look like this. Only maybe if you want to add something that is decorative and it's not an important text that adds um, um, like actually shares something very important on the website. Like if you want to add it as something that is decorative, like that's fine if it makes sense for that website and brand. You should kind of avoid this kind of fonts, or for example like this. So let's talk about text styling for legibility and talk about the AA levels and what you need to do for it to be compliant. The first thing is that you need to have the letter spacing at 0.12 times the font size. So for example, if you choose a good font, they already come with good spacing between letters and between words, because between words you also need to achieve 0.16 times the font size. In this example, I chose Roboto, and I'm going to show you, like for example, for it to not to remove the text, the spacing between letters, it would be like, for example, like this, like -11, let's say, and it needs to be like at least 12. So let's add maybe 1%, and it's already a lot of space. I think this is a bit too much, and it can even be like 0 or -1. But it already comes with spacing between them and it has a good legibility, but you need to keep in mind that they need to have this. So when you choose a font, this is why it is important that it has good spacing. For letters as well, like it's 0.16 between them. You cannot change this in Figma, but again, it's more about when you choose the font. The other thing is the line height. It needs to be like at least 1.5 the font size. For headings, I feel like this is too much. Like for example, if you add 1.15 or 150%, like it's too much. Usually like for text, it needs to be like this, which looks a lot better, for example, than as I added for headings. Like this is way too tight, like this is not legible, especially for those that are visually impaired. So for headings, like I added like this, and it's good. It has a lot of space and I feel like it's readable, but you need to keep in mind like for paragraphs, it needs to be like at least uh, 1.5 times the font size. And the other thing is when it comes to spacing between paragraphs, it needs to be 2 times the font size. So in this case, like I have like 22 for the font size here, so the spacing between them it's 44, and this ensures that it's legible for those that are visually impaired. The other thing is to use left to right for the text for those languages that are left to right, and right for the, and I use right alignment, so like this for those that are right to left languages. The other thing would be for the when you want to center the text, like for example, let's say that we want to make this centered. It seems that it needs to be only one sentence per page that is centered and not more than this. So this is for AA compliance levels. And another thing that is not legally required, but I think it's important because it's a common scenario, is adding width to the paragraphs. So these are AAA levels compliance. But I'm going to show you, like for example, on blogs, like you don't want the text to be full screen, so you want to set the width of those of that element, for example. But this should be everywhere on the website, but especially on the blogs. So you want to go inside of Webflow, and on the rich text you want to click on it, and you want to set the max width to 80 characters, so CH. So what this does, it tells the paragraphs that it shouldn't be more than 80 characters per line. And for you to understand, like a character is the letter O from that font, and it takes the width of it, and it that's one character. So it says that it should be 80 of those per line. So this ensures that it's easy for people that are visually impaired, especially, to read the text, and it doesn't stretch across the screen and messes up the design. So you want to set the width on every element. It shouldn't be like wider than this, and especially on the blogs. So this is a level. And the other thing that you want to make sure, that is another a requirement, is that on the paragraph you don't want to add any justify like left, right, or center or anything like that, because it can really mess up with the spacing between letters. And when you want to add, like to make the text left or right, you should use a line like this and not the justify. Yeah, so these are two requirements that are AAA, but very important as well. Another legal requirement in an AAA level is for people to be able to resize the font size to 200% without losing functionality or anything to go to just break. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. If you go to the Chrome, to the settings inside of the Chrome browser, and then you go to appearance, and then to customize fonts, and you change the font size to two times the size of it, so 32, you should be able to, like, yeah, you are going to see the changes. So you can see that everything looks okay, like everything is in its place, nothing is moved, nothing overlaps. So this is how it should look. I'm going to show you now how you can do this in Webflow. So let's turn this back to 16. So this is the default one. This is how people have it usually, but some people because they may not see things properly and they need to resize it to make it bigger, your website should be able to do this. So in Webflow, the way I set it up is I use relative units. You want to use relative units for font sizes and also like spacing on elements. I use rem for the font size. Also like for the height, you can see that it's like percent, and also like for the letter spacing. So everything needs to be in relative units. You should avoid to use pixels or yeah, like just fixed spacing. Like usually like rem it's the best for when it comes to the sizing. And also like I added the same thing for the sizing between the text, and also like between the buttons. Also like the sizing on the buttons is rem. Also like the font, the type size is rem. And also like for the images, rem and percent. And yeah, this is how, yeah, I do it, and you should be able to do this as well. So it seems that in Webflow we also have like the text zoom preview, so we can do the same thing that the same setting that we've done in the Chrome settings. So if we click on 32 pixels, which is two times the font size, it's going to do the same. So it's going to make the elements bigger, and you can preview this as well and see how well it works. And you can see like everything is well, like it resized, things are not overlapping, so it works. So you can test this inside of Webflow as well. So the next thing that we want to talk about is color as meaning. This is an AA level. So what this means is that color sometimes is not enough for those people that have limited color vision. So for example, when you have a form and you have an asterisk that is red, those people are not going to see it as red. For example, let's go to vision preview, because you can preview different things, how people with limited color vision see things. So let's click on red as weak. So you can see that it's barely visible, like it's not exactly red. And if we click on red blind, like it's more of a gray and not red. So what you can do in these situations, you can add a note and say something like required fields are marked with a red asterisk, and you can add it here. And like they can still see the asterisk, and they are like, okay, that's required. They might miss it. But in some cases, that can be even more complicated if you rely solely on the color without any text. Like for example, let's go to the form settings and let's click on error. So you can see here, like this is an error, and if we switch back to none, it's red, right? But if we click on red blind, like it's not going to be red. So people, if you are like, I don't know, something like oops, and you don't explain what happened, people are not going to understand what is this, because like we associate like red in this kind of situation with something went wrong. And you need to add more description to it, like oops, something went wrong while submitting the form. And people like, it helps more, like you shouldn't rely only on the colors. And there can be other scenarios where you may rely only on the colors, so you need to make sure that doesn't happen, and you use text as well or something for people to understand. Okay, so the colors also need to have sufficient contrast, and also the elements, the UI elements. So we are going to talk about the two levels, the AA level that is required and the AAA level that is nice to have as well. So the first thing that I want to talk about, I'm going to start with the AA level. So for the regular text, meaning like those that are like under 80 points, 18 points, um, they need to be like the contrast ratio should be like 4.5. And for the large text, those that are over 18 points, it should be like at least 3 with 1. And the same for UI elements. So in Figma, I usually use able to check like the contrast ratio, and I'm going to show you how you can do this. For example, like the text, like I add rectangles and I just add the colors that I'm using here, so the background color and also like the text color which is on top of the background, and then I select them and it says like the contrast ratio. So for this one is 5.57, so this is over like it's over the requirements for the A level, so it is over the legal requirement. But you can see here like for the small text it's AA, and for the large text like this is fine. Like it says here, like for the large text it's 4.5, and for the regular text for the AAA level it's 7 with 1. So this is how it looks. If in the for the A levels you have text that is, for example, like white on yellow that doesn't have sufficient contrast, it says in the guidelines that you should add like text outlines or shadows for the text, but you can see that it looks awful, so you should avoid this. I just made it here so you can see how it looks. You can see like for the contrast when we select these colors, like it fails, like it's just bad. And yeah, so I made another option here with the colors, how it can look like if we change it, for example, to yellow. And these are like the contrast ratio is 8 with 0, and it's over the requirements for the AAA levels. So this meets all the requirements, so this is fine. And yeah, you can like this is how you can check in Figma to see how it looks. So you also always need to make sure that the contrast ratio is at least AA levels. It should be like AA levels because this is the best and it has the best contrast ratio. So this helps, for example, when you are in the sunlight as well, not only for those that are visually impaired or have like low sight vision, and due to aging or stuff like that. And it also helps when you are out with the mobile in the sunlight and you cannot see anything on the screen, like having good contrast helps. And in Webflow, if you want to check the contrast, I feel like this is even better than the other um, um, like plugin for the contrast. So in Webflow, if you select a color and you move around, like you can see that it says here like contrast ratio, and it says fill, and it says how much it is. And you can also click on this eye icon, and you can see here like it says like this is AA and this is AAA. So this is has good contrast ratio, this is like the A level, and this is like it fails if it's here. So I feel like this is very good. Like you can in Webflow you can select colors more easily, and yeah, this is how we check in Webflow as well. Visual presentation also needs to be fully customizable. This is for AA level, so this is not legally required, it's not an AA level, but it goes back to the point that I was saying before with the font size being like users being able to change the font size and making it 2 times bigger. So that is an A requirement and it's still a part of this, but this requirement like for visual presentation to be fully customizable, this goes further than that. Like people need to be able to change the background colors, that because for example, let's say you have like a website that has a black background and it has like the white text, and people like it's not that accessible for people that are start to have like visual loss due to age and stuff like that, or maybe they are in a bright sunlight with the phone and it's not that legible. So people may use plugins or things like that to change the background and the colors on the website. So you should not add any rules, like for example the rule with for example the rule that adds like an important at the end in CSS that blocks um people to be able to change the color on different elements. You should avoid using this. Another thing is, if you add absolute positioning on elements, you need to make sure that people are able to like if they change the sizes of the text and stuff like that, like they move. So you should use like relative units and not fixed units. You need to make sure that everything is responsive, and yeah, like everything should be easy to be customizable and stuff like that in based on the plugins that they use. And yeah, this is an A requirement, so again, it's not legal, but it's still an important thing. Websites should also have visible focus indicators, so this is legally required for A levels. So if you go and you click on tab on the keyboard on a website, you are going to see that it highlights like the logo and then the button, so everything that is a link block or a link text. So if we go, for example, to forms and we click tab again, you should be able to see that it moves through the inputs and it has this outline around it, and it should be like keyboard navigable. For drop downs, you need to click on space when you have highlighted them, and then you use arrows to select them, and then you click enter and you select one option. Then you move to one of the radio buttons and you use the arrows to move between them. If you want to select one of them, you just click tab and you move on to the other input. And same for the checkbox. If you want to check it, you are just going to press on space. So you should be able to do this, all of this from keyboard, and you should be able to see like an outline around them. Now in Webflow, you are able to customize this. If we go to the inputs, for example, and we click on the, like inside the style selector, and we click on this arrow, it has like the states. And if we go inside the focus, we are able to choose to customize it. Like for example, the border, to add a color, and also like for the keyboard focus, like when we were navigating with the keyboard, you can also like change this to be different if you need it to be. So this is how you can customize them. Same for the radios, like radio buttons, you click on focus, and for checkboxes, so you need to make sure that everything that is a link has like this outline around them. Now for AAA levels, it needs to be some things you need to make sure that they are they are accessible when it comes to that outline. The first thing is, if we go again inside the focus state, that it is at least 2 pixels width, and the color, it needs to be at least like 3 to 1 contrast. So it needs to have enough contrast for those people that are visually impaired to see the outline. And yeah, this is what you need to make sure that it has. And the other thing, for the other requirement for AA level, is that the focus is not obstructed by any element. So it's not like any element is like overlapping it and stuff like that. Like it needs to be visible. Nothing should be on top of it, or for it to not be visible, or another border to be on top of it, and for that outline to not be visible. So when people are visually impaired, they can use assistive technologies like VoiceOver from Apple to look on websites. So what it does when it turn it on, like it reads the content that is on the website, and you need to make sure that how you set up the website, it has the right semantic HTML tags, and also like area labels, and some other things as well. But first let's go through this example that I have, the website that I have here, and see how it sounds with the VoiceOver on.
You are currently on a banner. Inside web content, banner, current page, link, home page, visited, link, sign in, visited, link, book a demo, visited, link, sign up for free, heading level 1, total hiring control, full-time poor mining teams, hire, manage, and pay field talent, one place, no agency, visited, link, book a demo, visited, link, sign up for free, 2 large yellow Volvo dump trucks working in a rocky open pit mine, image.
So you can see that at first it started with the banner, to read the banner and the navigation, the links on the navigation bar, the buttons, and it was reading to them. Then it got to the heading and it said heading 1, and then it started to read the text on it, then the paragraph under it, and then each link, and then it got to the image and it started to read the alt text on the image. Because of course, like people that are visually impaired, some of them may not be able to see the image, so it needs to have an alt text. I'm going to show you how to set it up in Webflow. So inside of Webflow, The first thing that you want to do, you want to have a div with a wrapper. So the HTML tags, you see them inside the settings panel. So with a tag like this can be a div, but then you want to have this setup. So the navigation bar at the top, you can add like to set, this is the default one from Webflow. So it comes with the tag already added. But if you add a custom one, you want to make sure that in the settings, like on the HTML tag, you want to set it to nav. And then on the main wrapper, so this has all the sections inside the on the website. So this has like the actually content of the website. You want to set a HTML tag of main. So from here. And then on the footer, you want to set, you are going to add as a div, and then the HTML tag needs to be set to footer. And then for all the sections inside the main wrapper, for the first one, you want to set the tag to header. And also for all the other sections, you can set them to the HTML tag to section. When you add them as divs, usually I add them as divs, and you want to make sure that the HTML tag is set to section. And then for all the headings, the one important thing that you want to make sure is that you have on one page only one H1 heading. So for like in this example, like this is the like the first heading is going to be like an H1, and you want to set it to H1. And then for all the other headings inside the other sections, the first one you need to set it to H2. And then all the other subheadings for this header, like in this example, like this one is set to H3, and same for this one, because these are subheaders for this heading. So you want to make sure that you are not going to set them to H4 or something like that. And you should not skip heading levels. So what this means, again, like H2 and then H3, and both of these are subheadings for this heading. So they should be set to heading 3. But if you want to add another subheading for this one, for example, you should do this like this, for example, and set it to heading 4 and not heading 5 or 6. So you shouldn't skip the heading levels. You should keep things consistent. If it's fine if heading 2 or heading 3 or so on, they repeat, but you need to make sure that it makes sense. Like you can see, like these two are subheadings or subsections for this heading, and it needs to have like logical sense, especially when the assistive technology reads that text, and it needs to make sense, or the person that listens to that, it makes sense how things are structured, and it doesn't sound messy. When you want, let's say that in Figma, you may have styles for this heading that it looks like heading 3. You shouldn't change it again from HTML tag, you should change the class on it. So in this example, you can change it to heading style H3, in the class, and change the class like that, but never change the HTML tags for the headings. The other thing that I want to say is that when the assistive technology reads the text, it follows the structure that you set up in the navigation bar, not the one that you have here. So what I mean by that, like it's going, like for example, it's going to read the navigation bar, and then it's going to go to the main wrapper, then go through all the sections. But sometimes when you add like divs or elements with position absolute or fixed, and you can put it anywhere you want. Um, where you position it in the navigation here, like the HTML element, it is going to read it where you have it. Like if you have, like for example, you add something like here, like between like the first thing, for example, in the main wrapper, you shouldn't do that, but let's say you add an element like that that has absolute positioning, it's going to read it first before the section, the first section on the website. So you need to make sure where you place it, because sometimes like with assistive technology, it may read it where you place it, and it might not make sense for the person that listens to it. So it needs to have some logic behind it, to be organized. And sometimes semantic HTML tags are not enough, and you need to use area labels. So I'm going to share a very common example. In the footer, when you add icons for the social links. In my case, like I added them as SVGs. So these are not images and you cannot add alt text for them. So the assistive technology to read that icon is. Because for example, when you add a link like this, like privacy policy, like this is a link text and it's going to read the content inside of it, which is privacy policy. So it knows that when the assistive technology reads it, it knows that it's going to open a link, a page for privacy policy. But when it comes to icons, in this case, for example, it's not going to know what that link opens. And in that case, you need to make sure that inside the settings, you add an area label. And in this case, it's the value is email. For the LinkedIn, like it's going to say area label LinkedIn, and you need to make sure if you add like an image, like the icon as an image and not as an embed code like I have it here, you can set the alt text to LinkedIn or email and stuff like that, and it's going to read it like that. So you can do it that way as well. But with area labels, like it can be a bit more simple, I feel. And one other scenario where this you need to make sure that you add an area label is on the logos inside the footer and also like the navigation bar. Because if you add, like I added an SVG in this case, like an embed code as well. But if you add an image, you need to make sure that that image doesn't have, like it doesn't say, because in this case, like probably it's going to say like appetite, like that's what you think that it should add like as an alt text. But you shouldn't do that, because when someone lands on this link, for example, like assistive technology, it's going to read it as appetite, and that person won't know exactly what that opens. Like they may think that it opens the homepage, but you can be more specific with this. So in this case, because again, like I don't have an alt text on that, and you shouldn't really add it, on the link block, you can add an area label and call it the value home. So it knows that it's going to read it like a link for homepage. And this is how you can do it. And the same for the logo on the navigation bar. You may have scenarios where you add, for example, on the blog page, a share button, and it might be an icon. And again, you can add like either like an alt text that says like share or something like that, or it's best to just use area labels and just say area label and the value to be share. Um, yeah, like you need to make sure that sometimes like um, the HTML tags are not enough, and you need to make sure that you use area labels in some cases. And when it comes to alt text for images, the way you set it up, you go inside of assets, and then you need to click, like for example in this case, like on the image, and click on edit settings, and you are going to see here alt text, and it says like it describes the image. This is very important, like in the example that I shared before, where the assistive technology reads like describes the image, and it reads the alt text for that image. So people that are visually impaired, they know what's on the website without seeing the image. And it's very important that you add this. And in some cases, when you have like icons, you can set this as decorative, because it doesn't really add that much value um, to what's on the website, because you may have like an text near it where it says like it's just decorative, like it doesn't add that much meaning, and the text already describes what the content is. You should set this as decorative, and also because you don't want the assistive technology to really read everything that's on the website. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, so you need to make sure that it makes sense for that person. It doesn't overwhelm with a lot of information, or it repeats, and also like for the images, for those that are inside CMS, like for example a blog post, I add a field inside the CMS settings that you can see here, like thumbnail alt text. So for the thumbnail, I am going to add also like a text field inside the CMS, where I'm asking the person that edits the blog to add to describe the image. And it's like it replaces the like it adds an alt text to that image, because they cannot set it from the assets panel. And for example, on the blog page, then you want to make sure for the thumbnail, I'm going to select the image. You want to make sure that the alt text here, like it links to that alt text field that we added inside the CMS. And yeah, this is how you set it up for CMS as well. Another requirement that is AAA and not AA, this is not legally required, but I thought it is worth to mention, is to not add text at all on images. So this should be avoided, or if you want to add text on images, it should be as an HTML element. So you need to build this on the website itself, like I've done, for example, with this element right here. So this is like, it has like the background, like as a div, and then all the text is added inside of Webflow. So you may think that this is an image, but it's actually like built inside of Webflow. So this requirement is because sometimes people may want to change the color of the background, and of course, like with an image, this is not going to be changed. And with an element inside of the web, like built inside of the website, of course, they are able to change like the color of the text, the color of the background, and stuff like that. It can resize this even better than an image. It has like it may not look pixelated and stuff like that. So again, this is an AA requirement. And also, like, it can work a bit better with assistive technologies because they are going to read each element. And with alt text, like, of course, you can add all the text and stuff like that and describe the image, but it can work a bit better with HTML element. Websites can also be legally required to have like a skip to main content link that appears on the top of the image when someone clicks tab. So I'm going to show you how it works. Like, for example, when someone clicks tab, you can see that something appears at the top and it says skip to main content. Then if you click on enter, like if you press on enter on the keyboard, it's going to jump to the main content. So what this does is that it basically, with the assistive technologies, it allows people to skip and not go through every link on the navigation bar. So I'm going to refresh it so you can see what I mean by that. So if I press on tab, it's going to open like skip to main content. But let's say you don't have it there, and if you don't have it there, like it's going, like if you click on tab again, it's going to start with the first link on the page, which is the logo on the navigation bar. And then it's going to go through all the buttons, and it depends if you have a lot of them, like it's going to go over all of them. And the person that uses the assistive technology needs to press tab a lot of times. So with the link at the top, it allows just for that person to be able to just skip to the main content. So again, like on tab, you click on enter, and then it goes, you can see that it highlights the elements in the on the main content, and it goes over the header or the navigation bar at the top. I've also found this example on Dropbox as well. So you click on tab and that appears, and then if you click on enter, if you press on enter, it jumps straight to the actual content on the page. But if you don't have something like that, like that person is forced to just go like this through every button, and it can be annoying. So that's, it can be legally required for those that companies that need to meet the AA levels legally. But it's also something that it's nice to have, you know, for those that are using assistive technologies. So you're going to be able, I created this clonable that you can use the link. You are going to see a link in the description below. If you click on it, you are going to be able to clone this and use it yourself. And because I haven't found it anywhere on Webflow, like no one has created this as far as I've seen, and you can just clone it and use it yourself as well. You don't have to create it yourself from scratch, even if it's quite easy. I'm going to show you how you can build it. But to explain how this was set up, inside of the navigation bar, you are going to see the link block. So you want to add a link block as the first thing inside the navigation bar, and you want to add a text element for the text inside of it and say like skip to main content. And for the skip link, you can style it however you want, but you need to set the position to absolute and the Z index to be higher than anything else. And the other thing that and the other thing that you want to do is to set the margin once you're done to minus 100%, so it disappears, it's like above the content on the page. And then you want to go to click on the arrow on the states and go to focused, and here you want to set it to 0. So what it does is that when it comes into focus, so when someone clicks on tab, it's going to go down, like it's going to appear, and it's no longer going to be hidden. So this is how you set it up so it appears. The other thing, inside the settings, you want to add an ID of skip link, or however you want it to call. And then in the link settings, you want the first thing actually what you want to do is on the main wrapper, you want to set an ID of main, or however you want, but then you want to go on the skip link, and on the link settings you want to link to the section main. So it goes to, like, when someone clicks on the skip link, it jumps to the main section like this. And the last thing that you want to do, you want to add a script inside before body tag. And you can copy, like, again, you are going to have the clonable in the description below, you can take it, but you want to add this script as well, because basically what it does, it just allows the assistive technologies to focus on the main content and read it, and no longer be focused on the skip link when you click on it. And yeah, basically this is how you set it up. So one very important thing when it comes to accessibility is localization, so the language of the website and how you set everything up. Now everything that I'm going to cover here are going to be AA levels, so this can be this is legally required for some companies, and this is quite complex for depending on the industry and the company and stuff like that. So I think this is the most complicated one, and you need to make sure that you really know, like, the legal stuff when it comes to the company that you build a website for. But I'm going to show you how to set, like, the things that you need to meet when it comes to AA levels. So the first thing, you want to set the language of the website. Even if you have like one locale, you want to make sure that it has, like, the first language is set. In this case, it's English. And like, the first thing is, like, every page, in this case, like in Webflow, you are going to set the language for every page by going here, like, inside the settings and localization and setting the language. But every page is legally required on A levels to have, like, the language set. And the other thing, because it helps, like, with assistive technologies, it helps so it knows how it should pronounce the text that is on the website, like in English and stuff like that. If it's in another language like French and stuff like that, like, it knows that it knows what kind of pronunciation it should use. The other thing is, with localization, if you have multiple languages, in Webflow, you can change. Let's switch, for example, to French. You are going to see that the text is changed, like it's in another language, and everything changes. Also, like, the alt text on images, it can be changed. If you go inside the again, like, the settings for the image, you can set, like, the language in every language you can change the alt text. The same for images. The images can be changed based on the language, so it displays different images if you need it to. Also, like, the names of the pages, and also, like, the slugs can be changed depending on the language. And also, like, for the title tag and meta description, this can be changed depending on the language. And also, like, the CMS, and like, a lot of things can be changed. And yeah, like, you need to do this because it also helps with accessibility, like someone that may be from France, for example, and they don't know English. Of course, that the website is more accessible. So this is, again, like, an AA requirement. And the other thing, like, let's say that you have, like, your whole website is in English. Let's make a scenario. And let's say that one part of the website, let's just take, for example, this one. Let's say that this specific text, for some reason, you need it to be in another language. And in that case, you need to make sure that for that text, you are going to add an attribute and say, like, you are going to add like name lang, and for the value you want to add the language, so the code for that language here. So the assistive technology, when it reads it in that with that specific pronunciation for that language. And this is an A requirement. So for the parts where of the text where or of the website where another language appears than the one that you have set up for that page, you need to make sure that you at least add this attribute like with the code for that language. And yeah, this is mainly what you need to do for when it comes to localization. Again, this is quite complex, like it takes a lot of time to set everything up, but these are mainly the things that you need to make sure of. So this covers the visual disabilities and accessibility in Webflow. In part 2, we'll tackle the hearing and motor disabilities, which means like captions, like keyboard navigation, touch targets, and things like this. With visual disabilities, with some things that I'm going to talk in the other tutorials, like it may still tie up into this as well. And you may still find some other things as well that you need to implement in the others. They are connected, but this is mostly like the most important things when it comes to these users. So I recommend you to subscribe and watch the other tutorials as well. And if they are posted already, check them out. I'm going to add them as links in the description below. And if you found this useful, I would really appreciate a comment or some feedback or anything like that, and let me know what other tutorials you want to check out as well. And follow me on Instagram if you want to stay more close to the content that I'm doing, because there I'm more active when it comes to like on stories and stuff like that, and I'm sometimes asking what else you want to see. And yeah, follow me there as well.